Hello everyone, I am Dr. Shiv Sajan Saini. Today I am going to discuss about retinopathy of prematurity. ROP is the most common preventable cause of blindness in children. Currently, we are witnessing a pandemic of ROP. Due to reduction in the neonatal mortality, we are able to save more and more premature babies, which is associated with increase in the morbidities associated with prematurity, including ROP. The disease is not only important from the baby's point of view, but also has immense medical legal implications. You will be surprised to know that one of the most hefty compensation in medical lawsuits have been awarded in cases of ROP. This is because of two reasons. Number one, ROP is preventable and treatable. And secondly, ROP is not visible from outside. Even in presence of severe disease in the retina, eyes look absolutely normal from outside. Therefore, we have to screen the babies in order to prevent them from being blind. As this topic is important, it has been divided into two webinars. The classification of ROP, screening strategies, and the treatment protocols have been discussed in a separate webinar. In this webinar, I am going to discuss risk factors, their prevention, and how to safeguard against medical legal issues. Let's begin our discussion with the risk factors of ROP. For making a better sense of the risk factors, let us briefly discuss its pathophysiology. Generally, fetus resides in relatively hypoxemic intrauterine environment. After birth, oxygen concentration in the blood suddenly increases. Simultaneously, nutrient supply from the mother stops immediately after cutting of the cord. These changes result in abrupt decrease in the growth factors required for growth of blood vessels, and thus a large proportion of retina remains avascular. With the growth of the baby, the avascular retina becomes relatively hypoxemic and secrete growth factors required for vascular development, including vascular endothelial growth factor or VEGF. This may result in development of abnormal blood vessels known as retinal vascularization. Retina in these abnormally formed blood vessels is known as retinopathy of prematurity. The risk factors for ROP can be categorized under three main headings: predisposition for ROP, exposure to harmful factors, and growth failure. A neonate is predisposed for ROP by virtue of being premature as well as through its genetic constitution. Degree of prematurity is directly related to the incidence of ROP. The contribution of genetics is not fully understood. However, we do know that white neonates are more predisposed for ROP than black neonates, and boys are more predisposed than girls. The harmful factors include oxygen toxicity, inflammation induced by sepsis, and hemodynamic instability. Growth failure, whether it happens before birth, that is intrauterine growth retardation, or after birth in form of postnatal growth failure, are independently associated with increased risk of ROP. Let us discuss them in little more detail. We all know that oxygen is life-saving and a brief period of hypoxia can be life-threatening. However, it is important to understand that increasing quantity of oxygens are equally bad. It can lead to free radical-induced injury. The preterm neonates are particularly predisposed to free radical-induced injuries, which are associated with the worst disease of neonates, such as retinopathy of prematurity, bronchopulmonary dysplasia, necrotizing enterocolitis, and periventricular leukomalacia. Therefore, the scientists are continuously trying to find out ideal oxygen saturations targets in neonates. Several studies have been done in past 2 decades, which have improved our understanding about the ideal saturation targets in neonates. These include support trial, CORD trial, and BOOST trials. The results of these trials have recently been included in NeoProm meta-analysis. The data from these studies was pooled to compare lower saturation target, which is between 85 to 89, and a higher oxygen target, which is between 91 and 95. This bar diagram shows pooled estimates of primary as well as secondary outcomes. The blue bar indicate lower saturation targets, and the oxygen bar indicates higher saturation targets. The primary outcome, which is a composite outcome of death or major disability, was comparable between the lower and the higher oxygen targets. Intuitively, lower oxygen targets were associated with significant lower risks of retinopathy of prematurity. Contrastingly, lower saturation targets were associated with increased risk of death and necrotizing enterocolitis. Therefore, an ideal saturation target is currently unknown in neonates. The most suitable oxygen targets are between 91 and 95%. However, one thing is absolutely clear from this dataset, that we must prevent hyperoxemia at all costs. Supplemental oxygen is given during oxygen therapy. In all neonates receiving supplemental oxygen, the oxygen saturation should be targeted below 95% by using blenders and by pulse oximetry. In addition to the supplemental oxygen, excess oxygen in the baby's retina can also be delivered after blood transfusion. We know that adult hemoglobin is present in the donor's blood, which binds to oxygen less avidly as compared to fetal hemoglobin. Therefore, it can offload increased quantities of oxygen to the tissues, leading on to risk of oxygen toxicity in the retina. Furthermore, fluctuation in the oxygen saturation, that is saturation swinging between hypoxemic and hyperoxemic range, are also known to increase the risk of ROP. Intrauterine and postnatal nutritional deficiency are associated with increased risk of ROP. Therefore, nutrition is currently an important area of research for prevention of ROP. Important constituents of nutrition include human breast milk and certain micronutrients. We know that human milk not only gives nutritional advantage to neonates, but also boosts their immunological functions. Miller and colleagues, in a meta-analysis of observational studies, concluded that human breast milk is associated with significantly reduced risk of severe ROP as compared to preterm formula. As randomized controlled trials are unethical on this subject, we have to be satisfied with the results of observational studies. However, there is no reason to disbelieve that human milk reduces incidence of ROP. Therefore, human breast milk practice should be aggressively promoted. In addition to breast milk, the role of several micronutrients have been evaluated for prevention of ROP. This slide shows the results of Cochrane meta-analysis of vitamin E for prevention of ROP. Vitamin E was given to LBW neonates starting from day 1 until day 30 and was compared to the placebo or no treatment. In pooled data of 8 studies, vitamin E was comparable to placebo in terms of overall incidence of retinopathy of prematurity. However, it was associated with decreased risk of ROP of grade 3 or more among very low birth weight neonates, as well as a significant reduction in the blindness from ROP. Unfortunately, there was a lot of heterogeneity in this data set, and vitamin E was associated with increased risk of sepsis. Therefore, the role of vitamin E is currently under investigation. Similarly, there is a lot of interest in the role of vitamin A for prevention of ROP. In a Cochrane meta-analysis, vitamin A given through intramuscular route was associated with a significant decrease in the risk of ROP among extremely low birth weight neonates. However, when it was given through oral route, it did not result in reduction of ROP. The overall pooled data of vitamin A given through intramuscular as well as oral route did not significantly reduce risk of ROP. Furthermore, vitamin A did not reduce the risk of severe ROP requiring laser therapy. Hence, routine use of vitamin A is not accepted by the scientific community as it failed to show clear-cut superiority and requirement of repeated painful intramuscular injections. The role of polyunsaturated fatty acids is also a hot area of research in ROP. This data is limited and we will have to wait for larger studies before polyunsaturated fatty acids are accepted as a definitive preventive modality for ROP. Sepsis leads to increased secretion of cytokines and chemokines during inflammatory cascade, which increases the vulnerability of retina for free radical induced injury, and thus it increases the risk of retinopathy of prematurity. Having understood the risk factors, let us discuss strategies to prevent retinopathy of prematurity. The first and the foremost is the prevention of predisposing factors. We cannot change the genetic constitution. However, prematurity can be prevented with the help of antenatal steroids. Antenatal steroids have shown to be associated with significant reduction in the risk of prematurity. Antenatal steroids not only were associated with decreased odds of having ROP, but also decreased odds of having severe ROP. The second and the most important component of prevention is avoidance of hyperoxemia. Sick neonates are routinely given oxygen therapy, and we should try to limit excess oxygen starting from resuscitation. Preterm neonates should be resuscitated with 21 to 30% oxygen to begin with. Blender and pulse oximetry should be used in order to titrate oxygen concentration at the time of resuscitation. After the babies are resuscitated, they may require supplemental oxygen in any form. The oxygen saturation should be targeted between 91 and 95% in those cases. If the babies require supplemental oxygen after birth, it is extremely important to set upper alarm limit to 95% in order to limit excess oxygen from entering the blood. If the baby through apnea, we should try to aggressively find the reason for apnea and try to prevent such episodes, as fluctuation in the oxygen saturation is an independent risk factor for prevention of blood transfusion as well as exchange transfusion is an important component of prevention of ROP. Delayed cord clamping is shown to reduce the requirement of subsequent blood transfusions, and therefore this practice should be promoted whenever there are no contraindications to delayed cord clamping. We should try to limit the blood sampling in neonates. Blood sample should be sent only if the results of these tests are going to change the decision making. Whenever sampling is done, minimum required sample should be obtained. One should try to use capillary samples in place of venous or arterial samples wherever such facilities are available. We should try to follow restrictive transfusion practices and carefully consider the need for blood transfusion, especially in preterm neonates. For all neonates having jaundice, phototherapy must be optimized in order to prevent double volume exchange transfusion. Asepsis is extremely important for prevention of infection as well as for prevention of retinopathy of prematurity. Hand hygiene practices should be rigorously followed. Clustering of care should be done and repeated handling of neonates should be avoided. Sharing of articles such as stethoscopes, inch tapes and thermometer etc. should not be done between neonates as it increases the chance of cross infections. Enteral nutrition should be aggressively promoted and duration of intravenous fluids should be curtailed. We should use ampules instead of doing multiple punctures in the bottles. We should try to curtail the duration of intravenous fluids, intravenous drugs by switching on to oral feeds or drugs at the earliest opportunity. The duration of intravenous antibiotics must be optimized with the judicious use of clinical acumen and laboratory practices and laboratory services. Quality improvement initiatives should be undertaken in all health facilities to promote healthy behaviors. For nutrition, all efforts should be done to provide expressed human milk to premature neonates receiving gavage or spoon feeding. If the neonates require intravenous fluids in the beginning because of either sickness or prematurity, effort should be done to switch to enteral feeds as early as possible. Rapid hiking of feed should be done in order to achieve full enteral feeding in a safe manner at the earliest opportunity. Nutrition supplements such as multivitamins and minerals should be started at the appropriate times. Behaviors to promote breastfeeding such as kangaroo mother care and oromotor stimulation should be encouraged. Timely screening is extremely important for identification of neonates with ROP. It will not only help to prevent visual loss, but will also prevent medico-legal issues. At-risk neonates requiring ROP screening should be identified, and the same should be recorded in the file. The date and place of ROP screening should be clearly indicated in the case record file or follow-up card. The same should be verbally told to the parents, along with the effects of not doing ROP screening, so that they understand the importance of ROP and go for ROP screening. During all follow-up visits, results of previous ROP screening should be evaluated and plan for future ROP examination should be documented and same should be conveyed to the parents. This slide is very important. Rashtriya Bal Swasthya Karyakram or RBSK has laid down guidelines for screening of at-risk neonates in 2017. ROP examination should be done in all neonates below 34 weeks of gestational age or below 2000 grams. Between 34 and 36 weeks gestational age, neonates with following risk factors should also be evaluated for ROP. These risk factors include cardiopulmonary support, prolonged oxygen therapy, respiratory distress syndrome, chronic lung disease, fetal hemorrhage, blood transfusion, neonatal sepsis, exchange transfusion, intraventricular hemorrhage, apneas, and poor postnatal weight gain. Apart from that, infants with unstable clinical course who are at risk as determined by neonatologist or pediatrician should also undergo ROP examination. So to summarize, ROP is an important medico-legal complication of premature neonates, which has immense medico-legal implications. We should adopt healthy practices for prevention of ROP, which include promotion of antenatal steroids, avoidance of risk factors such as increased oxygen concentration, prevention of sepsis, optimizing blood sampling and blood transfusion practices, judicious management of neonatal jaundice, promotion of express breast milk and nutrition supplements, as well as supportive care. We should promote healthy practices for prevention of ROP, which include promotion of antenatal steroids, avoidance of risk factors such as increased oxygen concentration, prevention of apnea, optimizing blood volume, optimizing blood sampling and blood transfusion practices, judicious management of neonatal jaundice, promotion of express breast milk and nutrition supplements, as well as supportive care. All neonates less than 34 weeks, less than 2000 grams, and those selected neonates between 34 and 36 weeks with risk factors should be screened for ROP as per national guidelines. All follow-ups should include evaluation of results of previous ROP examination and planning for subsequent ROP examination, and same should be conveyed to the parents.